Hello, 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 beautiful people. I am back. Like I never left. I told y'all that I will be back because I loved the live stream aspect of YouTube. And I'm back with a different topic today. And I hope you all enjoy this because as if you read the title, this situation right here, this is a mess. Um And I'm going to actually start this live off with a little bit about myself. Not too much because you know these people on YouTube, I done seen some crazy stuff. And I'm just uh average person. I'm just an everyday person. Just want to stress that this stream is for entertainment purposes only. It's for education, information. Any information or images that I use is fair use. And I am a licensed therapist, but I'm not your therapist. But if you need a consult regarding mental health, a consult regarding mental health in work, or a consult regarding work or anything about your career, feel free to contact me. Information will be in the description box below. But today, what we're going to talk about, we're going to get into a lot. I'm not sure how long I'll be able to be on here, but we're going to get into the DSM-5, and I'm going to give you all a little bit of background about what it is um, and what it's used for, because I think it applies to this situation. And another thing, everything in this video is my opinion as a therapist based on my knowledge and my experience as a therapist. So just want to make sure that is clear. Um, However, based on the title, you all know that, and I think it's certain words you can't use on YouTube. And I'm not really sure what they are specifically. It's some words have to do with what happened, and some words you can or cannot use or whatever. So I'll try to tread lightly, but we all pretty much know what happened with the show Welcome to Sweetie Pie's and TM Norman, right? And so we all kind of know what situation that family is in. I feel so sad and just really empathize with Andre's family. It's really a shame something like that happened to him while visiting his grandmother and visiting his family. You try to do the best for your kids, and I'm sure his mom thought that she was sending him somewhere where he could do better, and in the process of him doing better, his life was taken, and that is very sad. Um, but a little bit of, background about me. I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, and so even though I haven't been there for a while now, I still have a lot of knowledge about, different parts of St. Louis, where you should go, where you shouldn't go, the good areas, the bad areas, um, and, being raised there, I wouldn't say St. Louis was a safe place because I'm from the city of St. Louis. And we all know that the city of St. Louis is an area where Andre's life was taken. But in growing up in the city of St. Louis, as a child, you don't understand or think that it's I won't even say bad place, but that it's not a safe place. Because I can remember doing some stuff, and going in areas where now if I go to St. Louis and visit, or if I take my kids there, I wouldn't dare go. you know. But growing up, it's like you grew up there. You kind of, it's like you, if this makes any sense, it's like you know it's not a good area, but you still feel safe a little bit. I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes sense in my head. So I'm trying to explain it in the best way possible. And I'm sure that this is for anybody growing up anywhere really, because St. Louis is not the only uh place where bad things happen, right? You know, where I live now and other places, you can always find, a little a portion of, where you should go, where you shouldn't go, where things happen where people get hurt and things like that, right? Um, and but I will say this about St. Louis. St. Louis is very, based on my experience. Okay, um, St. Louis is very how should I say this? It's very segregated in the fact that it's almost like in this area, Black people live in this area. And on this side of St. Louis, this is where this group of people lives primarily. I'm not saying that only Black people live in this area or only in this area, it's only people who, are of Italian descent or whatever live in this area, right? But primarily, that's how it is. In North St. Louis, that's where the majority of Black people live in St. Louis and some on the west side too. But when you start getting to like the south side, that's where you probably see a mixture of people living. South side is more like, to me, more like a Mm, more like a trendy type of area for maybe like young um, adults or like young families, things like that. And not saying that, uh, older people or even younger families live there or whatever. It's just that's just the way that I view it. Somebody else might say something different. But they have like a lot of little shops and um, a lot of parks and um, just like kind of like a trendy modern type of modern but old town type of place, if that makes any sense. um and then you have downtown, and I feel like downtown in most places, downtown, it be iffy in downtown areas. And I don't know why that is, because downtown is mostly where you do like, business, stuff like that. You have a lot of business offices, a lot of lawyer offices, stuff like that. But in a lot of cities downtown, it's like a lot of, people that are homeless. It's but then you have like these high rises and then these lofts, but that's a whole nother issue, a whole nother conversation that we can talk about on a different day. But it's iffy in the downtown areas. Um, and then you have you have a portion of St. Louis that is a borderline, right? So you have St. Louis City and you have St. Louis County. Well, there's like if anyone knows that's watching this or watches the replay, if you know anything about the circle, that's where the line is drawn, right? Between St. Louis County and St. Louis City and getting into North St. Louis. So we call it the circle because it's literally a circle, and you drive around the circle to get, and wherever you get off at is where you're going. So if you get off this way, you're going to the county. If you keep going, you get off this way, then you're going to the city. So the border now, when I grew up, the border, it was clearly like, because they may not do it now because it's like a different generation growing up in St. Louis, but when I grew up, it was the county is the good part, right? Everybody want to live in the county. The city is, the city is like where your family, like all your family live. But a couple of y'all lived in the county, and on holidays in the summer, you will go to the city, do your fireworks in the city. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. That's where all the fun was. So, you know, but now that county and the city, like where it separates the first county, if you going to the county by the circle, the first city you'll get to is Jennings. And Jennings now, to me, is not like it used to be. Jenny's now look like the city where it's abandoned houses, abandoned buildings. You know, uh, it's some areas they're trying to like build up, but for me, like if I go back and visit for the most part, that's what I see. It's just not fixed up, right? So that's the view that I have about it. And growing up in St. Louis, if you just came to the live, please like the live. We are talking about the DSM-5 today as it relates to Tim Norman and sweetie pies. I was just talking about I am from St. Louis, born and raised there. I haven't been back there for a while, but just kind of right now giving my perspective of you know my view of St. Louis and the bad places, the good places. Um, and as we know, Andre was his life was taken in the north side of St. Louis. And um, what I was saying was in Jennings now to me, like if I go back and visit, it's not like it used to be. And to be honest, I grew up in Jennings and it was a beautiful to me. I even still have nostalgia about growing up in Jennings. I used to walk to school, I used to walk home. Now I wouldn't if having kids and anybody who grows up, as an adult has kids now and stuff like that, you always see things differently. Like, oh man, I used to do this, but I would never let my kids do that, with a lot of stuff. But especially being a licensed therapist, I just know a lot of things and have experienced a lot of things, heard a lot of things, worked with a lot of people, and now going back, I probably wouldn't allow my kids to do that in Jennings. I just wouldn't. But it used to be a safe place. Some of my best friends, lived there, went to school there. I have cousins that, went to school there and stuff like that. And it's just sad to see it the way that it is now. And like I said, they are building some parts of it up, but the majority of the parts is just it looks like it's turning into the city to me. And so now you find more and more people wanting to move further and further and further out into the county. So um when I grew up there, it was everybody trying to get to places like Jennings, right? But now it's people moving to St. Peter's, Lake St. Louis, further out because it's just getting bad. And I am sure I could be probably 100% positive that Andre's mom thought she was sending him to a place where his family was and that he would be safe. you know, no mom would put their child in a position that where they would possibly get hurt. And in the process, like I said, he was doing good. He graduated. He went to St. Louis to do what his mom intended him to do and what he intended to do, right? And a lot of I give props to I think her name is Philly Phil. She's been doing a lot of coverage on this story, and she's been doing an excellent job getting a lot of background information and things like that. And I really give her kudos for really kind of exposing, all of this information, and so that the public can, kind of know because that's the only way that we will kind of learn about things and you never know who's listening, right? Some people might be planning a trip to St. Louis just as simple as that. Some people might be on their way to college and say, "Hey, I want to go to St. Louis University." Right now, they know a little bit of information about the city. Not saying that they're going to change their mind, but you have to be aware of your surroundings and where you are going. You know what I mean? So I give props to her for taking this on. But I think one aspect of the story that really hasn't been talked about, and in a lot of stories like these, really, is the mental state of both parties, really. But today we're going to talk about Tim. Now, in order as a licensed therapist, right, I am. I have, the knowledge and experience to be able to diagnose someone with a mental health diagnosis, right? And a lot of times, I don't really like to focus on the diagnosis because I want to see what the symptoms are. It's easy to put a label on somebody and say, oh, they need medication, but sometimes it's just not the case. And I'll say, especially sometimes with black people, we grow up differently, and that's my opinion. It's a lot of things that we take on, a lot of things that we hold in, a lot of experiences that we've had, a lot of experiences we haven't had, right? And so just to kind of put a label on that, you can't put a label on it. You got to look at every aspect of a person's situation, their surroundings, how they grew up. That's just how I look at things as a therapist. People, I think people have to realize that what what you're experiencing now is not, it encompasses everything that has happened to you up until this point in your life. So, in order to get a better understanding of where we need to go moving forward, I got to get a little bit of that backstory. I can't just have somebody come sit in front of me and say, "Hey, I have anxiety," and I'm like, "Okay, when do you have anxiety? Where do you have anxiety? How often do you have it?" Right? um, Getting to the specifics because it may relate to something that happened way before, some type of trauma that you had. And so that gives a better understanding for you as well. You say, oh, you know what? You know, uh, that's probably why I think like this. That's probably why I'm always thinking something's going to happen. Right? I give you a prime example. So, probably about a couple years after I graduated from college, I was in an accident, and it was where the car that I was in went over the median on the highway and landed in a ditch on the other side. Thank God the car was not hit, but I went from the right side of the highway to the left side of the highway with oncoming traffic. And so at the time, I didn't know that I didn't think it would affect me or anything like that, right? Um, Let me just put my phone on do not disturb because if a call come in, I'm gonna be so upset and because this thing's gonna stop, I think. Y'all know I'm still getting used to this YouTube thing. um, okay. I think I did it right. Think so. Okay. And so at the time I didn't know that it would affect me like that. Um and so years later, I'm talking about probably up until now, if I'm on the highway or okay, okay, on the highway, when you get on the highway and you in either the far right lane or the far left lane, like you getting ready to get on the shoulder, and they got that little, I don't know what it's called. It's like the little ridges on the road that tell you you getting ready to get on the median, like you about to touch the median. So it'll say do 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 like that. So if I'm on the highway and or if I'm on on the regular road and I hear that noise, Oh no, I'm grabbing the driver's arm. I'm like, you too close. You too close to the median, like, or I'll be like, what you doing? Or I have some type of reaction. And it dawned on me, I had to realize that that was why the years later, because I had never had that reaction before, right? So that's a prime example of things that happen to you prior to whatever you having these reactions. It may be because of that, right? And so you are able to understand, you're able to kind of manage those symptoms a little bit better. So back to Tim, like we got to figure out how we got to this point. And maybe it's not figure out, I'm just curious because that's just my nature. As a therapist, trying to figure out, did he have symptoms, and things like that. And is this something that could have been prevented, um, based on the mental state? And so I may have to break this up into two lives. I don't know. But um, as a licensed therapist, when I'm diagnosing someone with a mental disorder, this is what I use. I hope y'all can see this. You probably can't. Let's see. Let me know if you can see it. I wonder why it won't show up. Okay. All right, okay, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. The DSM-5, right? So this is because nobody, not even doctors, right, can remember off the top of their head if somebody says, I have this symptom, this symptom, this symptom, this symptom. They say, oh yes, this. You might be able to for some small, uh, you know, some small disorders, that are common, like anxiety or mild depression or something like that. But for most things, we use this as a reference. And so, what is the DSM-5? The DSM-5 is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, right? DSM for short. And so when someone comes to us and says, we say, okay, what have you been experiencing? What are your symptoms? They name all these things. Now, as an experienced therapist, right, I pretty much kind of know where to start in a DSM, right? This is like my Bible for my profession. Now they've done revisions, text revisions, things like that, and you could probably get those things online. But I love to keep this. I keep this on my bookshelf because I always kind of look in it to see. I go to different, disorders, and it will tell me if this person has this symptom, this one, right? They have to have, say, for example, anxiety, right? If they're experiencing anxiety and they tell me, oh, I'm restless, I'm not able to sleep at night, I have loss of appetite, and so I go to the section where anxiety and the disorders are, right? And it'll tell me, okay, in order to diagnose them with having anxiety, they have to have at least four of these symptoms, right? Then it'll tell you it has to be happening this on this frequency, right? So if they tell me, oh, I only have these symptoms once a month, well, they may not meet the criteria, right? This is telling you what the criteria is to diagnose this person. So if they tell me, oh, this happens 5 times a day, probably they may meet that criteria, right? So I'm on, say, mild anxiety, but then they tell me, oh, sometimes I feel like I can't breathe or I have shortness of breath. My hands are sweaty. Well, I started asking more questions, like when does this happen? Is it when someone says something? Is it when you're doing public speaking? You want to get more information so that you have accurate diagnosis. Now, again, I'm not really the therapist that my style is more of like what we call eclectic. I don't really go, but even though, I'm a trained therapist, I don't really go so much by all of these um methods. A lot of therapists go by a certain method of questioning or how they ask the questions, right? I kind of do a mixture of modalities when I'm working with someone, because it's not a one size fit all thing for me. If someone is experiencing these things. And so, but this is my reference always when I have to, diagnose someone with something. So um, right, so we have a little bit of, background, with him. The only, I haven't looked up the family or anything like that. I did not care to do that. But what we do know with him is that when he was arrested and sent to prison the first time, right, when he was, I think they said 17, he robbed someone or beat someone allegedly or something like that. Um, I would wonder what was happening with him before then. We also know that Miss Robbie was probably not around much, but I don't really know what years she wasn't around, because we know, even though he may have had family that was caring for him while his mom was working, right? Because that's what his mom had to do. His mom had to work, you know what I mean, to take care of him. We don't know what his upbringing was like where he was, and not having his mom, because that's important when you I mean, he probably maybe knew where his mom was, but that doesn't negate the fact that he wanted to be or spend time with his mom and dad for that matter. So, where was his dad during the time, before he was getting into trouble, right? Or I believe his aunt was raising him and things like that. And I think she had kids of her own. So, it probably was difficult for her too, if he was getting into trouble, her trying to rein that in. She may not have known how to. And then mom and dad wasn't around, so it was probably difficult for her. And probably hard for him not to have his mom around, let alone, not his dad. Both of your parents are not around, you know what I mean? And for a child, it's hard to understand that your parent is working. They don't care that you're working. They don't. Prime example, when COVID started, I had to work from home. And don't get me wrong, working from home is a blessing. But when the schools are closed, when the daycares are closed, your kid don't care that you gotta work. They're gonna knock on the door, your office door. They're gonna bust in. They wanna spend time with their parents. So it don't matter if he was being fed, if he had a place to stay, if he was with his auntie and cousins having fun. He still probably longed for his mama, right? So that could have been, and again, this is all my opinion, that could have been a trigger to him getting into some trouble. Now, it may have started off as mild trouble, right? Because, for kids, some negative attention is better than no attention, right? And so, shoot, some kids, they so quick with it, and their thinking is so on point that they'll get in trouble, like, get arrested, stuff like that, just so the mama can come back, just so the mom can say, "Hey, I'm on the road, but I gotta go and see about my son," right? So then they have manipulated to the point where the mom has come back, but that's what they want. You see what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that it's right, but it or wrong or whatever. But this is sometimes what happens. And so I don't know if he got into trouble before then. If he robbed allegedly, if he beat allegedly somebody for I think I heard it was for a radio or something like that. Um, I would imagine he probably got in trouble before then. He was probably into some trouble before then, because I don't see, and it could happen, but I don't see a 17-year-old just now. Again, it could happen, right? Going out and just making it say, oh, I'm gonna rob or beat somebody without having some type of sign or something before then that he wasn't in a good place. You know what I mean? So that's the only thing we know. But that alone, those two things alone tells me a lot, right? Your mom wasn't around. What does it tell me? You felt abandoned. That's one thing. You felt like nobody was there for you. Now again, you with your family, but you're not with your mom or your dad. People got to realize, especially our people, we got to realize that it means a lot to have your mom and your dad. You know, you could be, raised by your auntie, you had millions of dollars. You want your mama and you want your daddy. We got to realize that it makes a big difference, right? So you felt abandoned, you felt lonely, right? Because then you see your cousin with their mom, and that's not the same type of relationship, you know. That's just it's not a good comparison, probably, but it could sometimes, when parents have to work. Say for instance, your parents working third shift or something, you gotta stay at your auntie house with your cousins or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You might have fun for a little bit, but then you ready to go home. You want to go home. You know what I'm saying? So, and home is where your mom is, where your dad is. So, those two things he could have been dealing with. I don't know what school he went to in St. Louis. That's the third thing, because you got a mixture of schools in St. Louis. Now, people got to realize too that St. Louis is big but small. Pretty much everybody know somebody from somebody's family when you really start sitting down and talking to them. You know, you pretty much know who's who. Um, so, and it's crazy because if you're from St. Louis and you and you meet somebody else from St. Louis, they gonna ask, the first thing people ask you is like what school you went to. Why that be the first thing we ask? Why is that? Like, what difference is it gonna make what school I went to? But that's just how we are in St. Louis. Okay, so you can, I don't know what school you went to, you know, and apparently, I don't know if he made it to high school or if he dropped out before then, or he did a couple years in high school and then he dropped out because I don't think he got his high school diploma. I don't think he graduated. So, I mean, he was 17 when he went to prison, so he might have been enrolled in school. Maybe he wasn't going, but that tells you that he was getting in trouble. You know what I'm saying? He's probably getting in trouble. Probably wasn't going to school, skipping class or whatever, whatever. And again, kids do that stuff, but mo, hmm, you you got to know when you got to get back on, when you got to handle your business. Now you might lollygag or whatever, but you got to go to school. You got to finish school. You know what I'm saying? So I don't really know. Again, the bottom line is that something had to be going on with him before that happened, right? Okay. So abandonment, feeling lonely, right? Probably having issues with school. And again, depends on what school he went to. The fourth thing is that I would like to know, what. what kind of outlet did he have? Was he involved in sports? Um, a lot of times the kids are involved in sports, that keeps them away from things that are happening from the streets, basically, getting into trouble and things like that. But I haven't heard, if he was involved in anything or he had coaches or, things like that. But for me, I think the biggest thing is that because his mom was not there, probably is what kind of set this whole thing off, of him, just not caring, right? Because it's kind of like nobody else cares, so I'm not gonna care either. Like my mom don't even care enough to be here with me. And I'm not saying that his mom did not care because the mama gotta work, but kids just don't think in that way. Right. And then too, who knows? The mama could have been there. The mama could have been coming back every week. We don't know. Miss Bobby could have been coming back, visiting him every week, getting ready for school. We don't know. I haven't heard any of that information. So, and you know, it's difficult to in this way, right? Because you could talk about all that, and it could be the opposite. Miss Bobby was doing everything that she could do to raise him. She was coming back every week. She was, doing all this, and then he still turned out this way. I mean, what can Miss Bobby do? So now I just thought about something. That's a good point because if she was doing all of that, all the things they say you should do as a parent, right? Because we know ain't no book to it. If she was doing all of that and he still turned out this way, maybe this is why now Miss Robbie is overcompensating, right? She's trying to make up for what she feel like she maybe didn't do, or because parents we have, we say, oh man, I should have did this better, or oh, I should have put him in basketball instead of football. Oh, I should have put him in, he told me he wanted to be in band that time, but I didn't send him to that school that they had the band program. You put it on yourself as a mom, especially she was a single mom, so I can't imagine. Right? She probably have a lot of guilt about what she did and did not do. And now, can you imagine at how old is Miss Robbie? 80 something years. She in her 80s, thinking about trying to figure out how to still be the perfect mom. That's a lot to hold on to. That's a lot to carry for a grown man. We got to realize as parents, really as black parents too, that when our sons get to a certain age, they got to make their own decisions, and we can't have no part of it. If you know that you did the best, you did the best that you could. You try to make the best decisions for your son. While he was in your care, try to steer him the right way, taught him right from wrong, things like that. And then now he do this. You ain't got nothing to do with that. You can't carry that, especially in your 80s. What come on now. He got to take full responsibility and accountability for what he has done all of his life. Because again, no matter if the mom was working, the mom was working. That don't mean that you're supposed to act out. I mean, as a child, you got to get to a point, where you understand it. Kids don't really understand it, but as an adult, right, it's kind of like back to all the things we naming, right? Now you went to prison at 17. Now you out at what? He was there for 10 years. You're 27, 28 years old. You out. Oh, mama, since you wasn't there for me, now he entitled to get something when I get home. You gonna give me those restaurants. You gonna give me everything that you weren't able to give me when I was a kid. Everything I wanted. All the times I longed for you. All the times I wanted to be near my mama. All the times I wanted to come to California with you or wherever you were. You didn't come get me and this, and this. You gonna make up for it now. I'm gonna make he is it's almost like not that he intend to do it, but in here, right? I'm gonna make you pay. So you gonna let me open 50 restaurants if I want to. You gonna do it. You gonna do it, right? And not only with the mom, but with other people too. And I don't even know how he was in prison. Now on Philly's Bill channel, I did hear that some people said that he was that he got in, somebody said, I don't know, allegedly, right? That he got in trouble one time with a guard or something like that. It's like I don't have a care for nobody. I don't have regard for any person, right? Because of what that trauma and the hurt that he has inside. So who is Andre to get treated like a king? When I was his age, I didn't get treated like a king. And then your mom the one helping him. Did nobody help me? Right? That goes to all the things that they said that he did to that little boy too. Him and I watched the show. You know, when that show came on, baby, I was excited. I was like, St. Louis, yes, yes, like because again, St. Louis is big but small, and the stuff they were naming, and I would imagine it would be for anybody from any city, to see like their city on the map or whatever, and it's like, oh, Mangrove, I know exactly what it is. Like, oh, I know somebody live right around the corner, or, Upper Crust. Oh, yeah, like that's where we used to go, such and such, or that's where I went to school at, and blah, blah, blah. Like it's a proud moment for them, for people from St. Louis. And then you got people coming from everywhere. You got people coming from everywhere to see this lady and to come to her restaurant, right? So it's kind of like, this is a proud moment, for St. Louis. So again, him coming out of jail, saying, probably thinking, oh yeah, my mom got everything waiting for me because maybe he felt like it did not happen before. So it's a lot of aspects that could go into all of this, right? So then when we got abandoned, we got him feeling lonely, we got him getting into trouble, no regard for human life because you allegedly beat somebody for their radio, for a dang on radio. What kind of what kind of thought process do you have to say, I'm about to beat you for your radio? For a radio? That's deep. Like you really think about that. You about to beat somebody for a radio instead of what? Working to get your own radio. Hell, asking your auntie could she buy you a radio. Asking your mama could she buy you. Like, come on now, right? And then okay, now you got that. So then you come out 10 years later and then you got this entitlement attitude, not only with your mama, but with other people too. Oh, you're gonna do what I want you to do, right? Having that type of, attitude or feeling now you feel like you big boss, right? Because but then on the back end it's only because your mama set all of this up. But you ain't realizing it, right? So back to the DSM though. I think I'm gonna make a part two to get into all of that. But um when we look at this, I can pretty much go in here and say, all right, I got a pretty good idea when I look at the childhood, right? A lot of people say, oh, he's narcissistic. And let me talk about that a little bit. How do I start? Um, at this point, everybody knows what narcissism is because it's like a hot word going around everywhere. Everywhere I turn, I hear, oh, he narcissistic. Oh, I was with a narcissistic partner. Oh, they so narcissistic. Oh, that is a total narcissist. Oh, that's a perfect example of narcissism. And half these people don't even know what it is. They saying it because they heard somebody else say it. They think they know what it is, right? And I'm not saying that he's not narcissistic. I'm just saying stop throwing around words that you probably don't know much about, or if you're not, trained to understand what the symptoms are for that, right? And then not quick to label somebody. It could be a whole lot of things. It could be that. But we want to make sure that we're looking at all the symptoms and um to make sure we just not throwing words around, you know. So so when I look in the DSM, I mean I could start off with a lot of disorders, you know what I mean? I could just go by the any of the symptoms that he had. Now, one of the things, another thing that I kind of already mentioned that kind of stuck out to me was his having no regard for human life, right? No empathy for others, um, based on the alleged beating of someone. We originally went to prison, and then also the second thing is that mugshot photo that put it in the coffin for me. That mugshot photo, it was the smile for me. Why you smiling? Somebody gone. Your nephew gone. You allegedly paid somebody to do it. What you smiling about? What's so funny? That's what did it for me. I'm like, nah, something ain't right. That's what made me think, let me get my DSM because again, it was a smile for me. Why are you smiling on a mugshot? It could have been for anything. Who smiles on a mugshot? That's something ain't right. Something is wrong up here if you smiling on a mugshot. I don't care if it was for a parking ticket. I don't care if you know that the police in the wrong. I don't care if they didn't already prove your innocence. I don't care what it is. What are you smiling about? No. So a lot of people, so let me see. So when I go in here, I can look up, I'm going to look up something in my manual. So when I look up, first thing I will look up is this trauma because I pretty much pretty much feel like this man that had some trauma, whether it was from childhood or whether it was from being in prison at 17. Because if you go to prison, and this is not you don't gotta be a trained doctor or a trained therapist to figure this stuff out. You see what I'm saying? You just gotta have some common sense. If you went to prison at 17 and you was there for 10 years, what age you think you are when you come out of prison? 17. You ain't doing nothing in prison. But what? I could imagine laying there in look like filth to me. It ain't clean. You can't watch much TV. You can't hardly probably go outside. Uh, what you doing? Exercising, getting buff. That's it. You have no idea about what's happening in the outside world, the progressions that have occurred. The newness of things. Shoot, if he was 17, he got out. He probably did. You know what cell phones were, computers, or any of that? So like you still 17 years old. You got to start from being 17. And I've heard him say on one of them clips, I think, now don't give me the line, because again, allegedly this is my opinion. I ain't trying to rub nobody the wrong way. This is just entertainment, in my opinion. But he was saying that when they arrested him, he was going walking to his mom's door, and he saw his mom, but he didn't make it to the door because they put the handcuffs on him or something like that. That's the way he described it, right? So it sounds like, based on what he describing, that it may have been a traumatic experience, him getting arrested and being in in prison. I mean, I would imagine it's trauma for anybody, because if you went to prison for and I don't know what the specific charge was, but if you went to prison, there's some people in prison that did some stuff, and you 17 years old, and you may have gotten in some trouble, but you ain't got in no trouble like that. You like, oh my God, what's gonna happen to me? How I'm gonna survive here for 10 years? You know, like, so that's traumatic. So then we go to trauma and stress related disorders. Now I don't know about nobody else, but child, if I was in prison, I'm having a panic attack every day. I'm begging the people, begging the people not to send me to that prison. You heard me? Baby, they're gonna have to put lock me up somewhere else, because I'm gonna, you know how like a little child be hanging on somebody's leg. That'll be me. Please don't see me. Please, I'm so sorry. Like, remorse out of this world, okay? But him, he's smiling on the mugshot. Child, 265. Okay, so when we go to 265, this man that messed up this boy. Who this boy family is just grieving. I just, oh, it just sickens me. 265. Okay, so we go to trauma and stress related disorder. Now, in this section, you have several disorders. You got anything that's related to trauma, anything that's related to stress, right? So let me see. And then two, the DSM so, takes into consideration cultural factors too, because a lot of this stuff, it could be looked at differently from different cultures. Some cultures deal with things differently, and so we have to take that into consideration. And we take, cultural competence courses and things like that, to make sure that we are up to date and renew our license and stuff. So that is taken into consideration. So another hot term, PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. So then when you get out of prison, right, you might have a little bit of PTSD. You might, commonly that is for you see a lot of veterans, getting diagnosed with that because they've been in combat. You know what I'm saying? It's a totally different world. Kind of same situation, right? Prison is a totally different world from how we live every day. We able to get up, put whatever clothes we want to put on. We ain't gotta wait in line to brush our teeth, wait in line to take a shower, bathe. We can, pretty much go out. We drive our car, go where we need to go, come back home. Once it's like we have a little bit, our freedom. They don't. They can't just walk outside. So that's stressful. You know what I'm saying? So, especially too, and y'all, I'm sorry, I could talk. I could talk. This is why I need to continue to do lives because I love to talk. And baby, when I start talking, it's like, hey. So I'm probably gonna go out on a whole bunch of tangents. But if I see something like, dang, okay, this is it gets in my brain, I gotta like say it. So people post traumatic stress disorder, especially for people that are in prison that have been wrongly accused. Can you imagine what kind of stress you're going through when you know you didn't do something, but then you can't even figure out how to prove you did not do it because the justice system's so messed up. You see what I'm saying? You gotta. and then you in prison. So what resources do you have to put together to show that you didn't do something? Like it like probably you know, people, everyday people, we don't really think about that stuff. You know, it's kind of like taking your freedom for granted too, because you don't really think about, dang, if I it if somebody did something, and this will go back to the police busting in the doors and they ain't even in the right door. But if I didn't do something, like, and they just put me in prison. How I'm finna figure out in prison the stuff I need to let you know I didn't do it. And then it ain't even that easy. Okay, back to what I was saying. So PTSD. Okay, so let's read it. Okay, post traumatic stress disorder. The following criteria apply to adults, adolescents, and children older than 6 years old. For children 6 years and younger, we will look at a different criteria. Now, I have never diagnosed any kids 6 years or younger with PTSD. I've never done it. But, it could be some situations where the child might, a common symptom of post traumatic stress disorder is having nightmares, kind of being in that thought process of reliving the situation that you were in. So it could have been a house fire. People when you think about PTSD, you commonly think about veterans in combat, but it could be anything that was traumatic, a car accident that left somebody severely disabled or something like that. um all these things that have happened, recent events with schools, those things are traumatic to kids. They can't barely process, you know it, what they supposed to do during the day for they little schoolwork, trying to go from class to class, or trying to get just these concepts down, these learning concepts down, and then you throw in the mix somebody that walked into our school, and then we got to figure out if we should get under the table or where we got to go. These kids can't process that. They can't. It's not to their understanding. So they could have nightmares. They could be reliving, if they are in the grocery store and then they see somebody that had the same pants on as the person walk in, they gonna be scared, right? So they both are in the post-traumatic stress. Okay, so I'm just gonna read A, and then I'm gonna do another live and go through the rest of it. And possibly some other disorders. But if you have any questions, please put them below. Again, I'm going over the DSM as it relates to Tim Norman and Welcome to Sweet Pies and the whole situation that happened with Andre. Rest in peace. We're just trying to get a better understanding of Tim and what a mental state is. And so right now I'm reading from the DSM-5, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. And we are talking about post-traumatic stress disorder. And so, A, exposure to actual or threatened, I don't know if I can say this word on YouTube. Exposure to actual or threatened unaliveness, serious injury, or some type of or sex violence in one or more of the following ways. So they have either one or more. Okay. So number one, directly experiencing the traumatic event. So we know he went to prison. He's That's trauma because you ain't free no more. Number two, witnessing in person the events as it occurred to others. Okay. Okay. So this means that you directly experiencing something, or number two, you witnessed something, right? Witnessed something happening to somebody else. Okay. Number three, learning that the traumatic event occurred to a close family member or close friend, right? In cases of actual or threatened unaliveness of a family member or friend, the event must have been violent or accidental. Okay. So, example, I don't know if y'all seen on Netflix. Netflix coming with these documentaries. That'd be my favorite thing to watch. I love a good documentary. Ooh. So they got this one. I can't remember. Oh, it's called. I think it's new too. The girl in the picture. I think that's what it's called. The girl in the picture. Baby. At first I wasn't gonna watch it, but I said because it didn't look good. But I said let me go ahead and watch it, baby. These people are crazy. This man, this man kidnapped this girl. It was so confusing at first. I'm like, where you get this girl from? This lady had been looking for her baby girl for so long. Ooh, what happened was, and see, this is why you got to be aware. This lady, she was married and everything, and her husband had PTSD from being a veteran. He had went, I think he was in Vietnam. And he came back, he had PTSD. And things just wasn't the same. They got a divorce. But I think she had three girls. Yep, she had two girls by him. But then when he came back, they got divorced because she was messing with somebody else and she had got pregnant. She got pregnant with and had another little girl. And so that didn't she was married to that man too, I believe, but that didn't work out. So she was on hard times. Ooh, the lady said she was robbing Peter to pay Paul. She was writing bad checks, everything. And so she started going to church. I think she said she was going to church. She went to church and this man came up to her and was like, "Oh, God sent me, and to take care of you. I'm gonna take care of you and your kids or whatever." And the lady, I can't imagine that was all that man said because see me, if he had said it to me, I would have been like, "Where he come from?" I'm so skeptical. I'll be like, "You lying?" I don't be trusting nobody because these people crazy. What you gonna do? What? You ain't even got no job. Get out of here. This man said, I'm gonna take care of you and your kids. So she said, okay, and moved. I don't know if they moved. They must have moved in together or something. So I don't know. I guess everything was going fine. Then all of a sudden, the lady said she went to the kids. Oh, she said he did start acting crazy though. But she said she said it's not funny, y'all. But I just thinking like I can't be in these situations because but see you never know what you will do in these situations. So that's why I got to stop that. But she said she went to um what was it? She went to can you put a one in the chat if you can hear me? Because I don't know if my oh shoot. Please put a one in the chat if you can hear me. I think I have it up. Okay. So she went to 7-Eleven one day. The lady didn't have any money. So she wrote a bad check. And they locked that butt up. They locked her up. She said she got 10 days. I think she said 10 days in jail or something like that. And so I don't know where the kids was. But during that time she was in jail or she got out of jail and she couldn't find the kids. I guess she thought the kids he was keeping the kids while she was in jail, I guess. She couldn't find her kids. She went to the police and they was like, did she marry the man? I feel like she married him because I think she said the police was like, oh well if you marry, like it ain't nothing we can do or something. Girl, Them people, that lady cannot find her three girls, and these were three little girls, like 5 years old, 4 years old, right? And she said she was the police said they couldn't help her. So I mean, they didn't really explain everything. Yes, I guess it sounded like she stopped looking for the little girls or something. And so all of a sudden, the first two she had by the first husband, he had them drop them off at I don't even know where, some of the church or the orphanage or something like that. But he kept that last little girl. She had to be about 5 years old, 5, 6 years old. He kept her. Do you know this man kept that little girl for 20 years? She never found that baby girl. He kept her for 20 years, changed her name, took her all kind of traveling all over, not even the world. He was in the US traveling with this little girl, having her do IN jobs for him and stuff. She ended up getting pregnant by the man twice. The first kid must have been put for adoption because they spoke to the daughter. She was grown or whatever, and they spoke to her, and she knew she was adopted or whatever, but she didn't know what happened to where her mom was or anything. He had changed his lady name. So fast forward 20 some years later, right? The She was working at a club. You're doing you know what, and so they was getting in all kind of trouble at the club, and he wasn't acting right. He was fooling with them young girls and stuff, and so he ended up unaliving the girl, right? And the police had found like a Jane Doe or something. They didn't know who she was. And so, but the club she was working in, she had made some little friends. So the little friends was like, "Oh, our friend, that was our friend." And they, in some kind of way that they found out it wasn't her. They was like, "That's not her name." And they're like, "What you mean? That is her name." So then they started doing investigation, like, who is this person really that we didn't find? Come to find out, it was this lady daughter from 20 years ago. These people, you got to watch who you talking to. You got to have some discernment. When something don't sound right, it ain't right. When something don't sound right, it is not right. I'll be at first. I'll be like, nope, that don't sound right. Nope. Like people be getting food, and I'll be like, how did you get food with that? He like, that don't even make no sense. So people, they do. They be getting people get food all the time. People get taken advantage of, and this man kept that baby for 20 years. Go watch it. I'm telling you, watch it. 20 years, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. So yeah, I see now and got off on what I was saying about this thing on DSM in my book that said. Okay, so I said, okay, so let me hurry up and go do this because I got to go. Okay, two. All right. So post traumatic stress. Um, Hold on. Okay, so we said. Okay, so I was going back to that. So that was my example because learning that the traumatic event occurred to a close family member or close friend. So when her friends called and they was like, "Oh, that's not this person," they was like, "That's our friend. Yes, it is. Like we know her. She worked with us, whatever." They was so upset. Like they couldn't believe it. They could have been diagnosed with PTSD because the criteria say all you need is one of these symptoms, right? And they were kind of second-handedly experiencing what she was because she would come to work and tell them, "Oh," because she thought he was her dad, but they were married. You know what I'm saying? Like I was like, so she was like, "Oh, well, my dad told me to do this," and they're like, "What dad got their daughter working here?" Like, you know what I'm saying? And so they were kind of telling the police like this is what she was telling us that was happening to her, and so they were kind of experiencing it too, right? And then they learned that she wasn't the person she was, blah blah blah. So they could have been diagnosed with it too or had some PTSD from that. Okay. And then number four, experiencing repeated or extreme exposure to aversive details of the traumatic event. Right. So what does that mean? That means that, for example, like um if you see an accident on the road or something, you see the first responders collecting the remains, things like that. Um, you know, it could be in your profession. It could be in your profession. It could be that you, as a doctor, you work in the ER and you see people, not making it every day. That type of thing. That's what that means. Now, note. So going back to number four, where it says experiencing repeated or extreme exposure to aversive details of the traumatic event. The note on this does not apply to exposure through media, electronic media, television, movies, or pictures unless this exposure is work related, right? So all those people that were watching videos of people being unalive and stuff like that, that doesn't count towards it because probably because you are making the decision to watch that. I don't watch this stuff. Some people say, "Oh, I watch video." I can't do it. I have nightmares out the wazoo. And that is crazy because I watch them documentaries. I be watching the craziest documentaries, and then I hear little, stuff be settling in the house at night, and I be like, "What's that?" And I be like, "Let me turn this off and go to bed." I be scared. But I love to watch it. I love to watch it. But them type of videos of somebody being alive, I can't do that. I can't watch that. It will not only be on my mind, it be on my heart. I can't do it. I can't do it. I be crying all day. Um. So yes. Okay. So that is A. It's also B, C, and D. So I'm gonna do another live and we'll go through it, right? Because I think this is if if Tim met the criteria for some type of diagnosis, this is something that we would maybe start with. And every therapist is not going to agree with me, and that's fine. Everybody's not going to agree with me. Every psychologist wouldn't agree with me because they diagnose individuals as well with mental disorders. Every psychiatrist wouldn't agree with me. That's fine as well. Again, this is for entertainment purposes, for educational purposes, just so the I'm going to say laymen, right? Because most likely people who will watch this may not be therapists. So laymen can everyone can get a better understanding of kind of how this stuff works, right? And then we can move into other things to understand why it wasn't addressed. Um, so yeah, so we can start out with post traumatic stress, trauma related to going to prison. I don't know if he had any trauma, when wherever he was living, he wasn't living with his mom, or he could have, like it said, learning about a traumatic event, right? I don't really remember them saying or knowing information about when his dad passed. But that's learning about a traumatic event because the dad was I think that his life was taken by somebody else. And some parents or some family members don't have any filters, and baby, they'll sit in there and they'll tell the child how they said it happened. That's trauma. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay. So, so I'll try to be back. I might try to come back later on tonight. I got so much to do, y'all. I'm gonna try to come back later on tonight, so we can continue to go through this. I really enjoy it. I hope that you enjoyed it as well. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know. You can leave me questions or comments. Please like the live. And if you need a consult related to mental health, a consult related to mental health and work, or a consult related to your career, let me know. I do consultations for career strategies and consultations regarding how to manage mental health and work. Because a lot of people don't know that if you have been diagnosed with a mental health disorder, or if you have symptoms that are preventing you from doing your daily work, I don't care where you work, um, you um, that prevents you from working, you can, get short-term disability, paid disability for that, if it's severe enough. And that is a resource for people, and a lot of people don't know about that. It's a resource in order for you to take the time to get the help that you need. And based on your insurance, it would be paid. So if you need a consultation regarding that, please let me know. I provide consultation, but I will see you all tonight. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you so much for listening. Bye.